Far back in time, before names, before memory, the African continent holds the first steps of Homo erectus. The landscape is vast and shifting. Grassy savannas stretch wide under an open sky. Scattered trees rise from dusty ground. Herds of antelope and elephant move slowly across the horizon. The air is warm, the light golden, the sound of insects constant. It is in this world, 2 million years ago, that a new species of human emerges. They stand taller than their predecessors, with longer legs and shorter arms. Their bodies are built for endurance, for walking long distances under the sun. Their skulls are thicker, their brains larger than earlier hominins. They are not yet like us, but the path toward humanity has turned in their direction. Archaeologists find their traces in the soils of East Africa, in places like Kubi Fora in Kenya and Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania. Fragments of skulls, jaws, and of bones tell the story. These remains are old, but their shape is distinct. A sloping forehead, heavy brow ridges, and a projecting face mark them clearly. Alongside the bones, scattered stone tools appear, rough flakes, sharp edges struck from larger cores, and later the signature hand axes bifacially worked, symmetrical and strong. The presence of these tools links directly with the rise of Homo erectus. They are not the first to shape stone, but they refine it, giving it a standard form that will endure for more than 1 million years. Step by step, this new species adapts. They live in groups, gathering food from wide territories. Meat becomes more central in their diet. Cut marks on fossilized bones show that they carve flesh from large animals. Some sites suggest scavenging from carcasses left by lions or hyenas. Others hint at active hunting, though the evidence is uncertain. Whatever the method, the ability to process meat offers more energy, more protein, more strength. It may also feed the growing brain inside their skull. The climate of Africa during these times is restless. Glacial cycles far to the north push rains and winds southward. The savannas expand and contract. Lakes fill and dry. Forests retreat, then return. For hominins, survival depends on flexibility. Homo erectus shows this flexibility in their build and in their behavior. Long legs mean they can travel far to find food and water. Simple but reliable tools allow them to cut, scrape, and dig. Fire may already be known, though proof is scattered and debated. In the layers of Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, ash and burned bones dating to around 1 million years ago suggest fire control, though some argue it could be natural. If they indeed master fire, the nights grow safer, food becomes softer, and the cold less threatening. Each fossil site gives only fragments of a larger picture, a partial skull here, a jawbone there, but when pieced together, a clear presence emerges. Homo erectus persists across centuries, through shifting lands and climates. Their endurance is striking. Where earlier species fade within shorter spans, Homo erectus lasts nearly 2 million years. This extraordinary survival makes them one of the most successful humans that ever lived. One lesser-known detail comes from the site of Narokotome in Kenya. Here, a nearly complete skeleton of a young boy was found, often called the Turkana boy. He lived around 1.6 million years ago. His bones show he was tall for his age, with a body form close to modern humans. He likely stood over 160 centimeters at death, perhaps destined to reach 180 as an adult. His chest shape, limb proportions, and pelvis suggest endurance running, an adaptation to hot, open environments. Yet his brain was smaller than ours. around 880 cubic centimeters, far less than the modern average. The Turkana buoy shows both the nearness and the distance between Homo erectus and ourselves. Still, mysteries remain. Scientists debate whether all fossils grouped under Homo erectus truly belong to one species. Some argue for separate names, such as Homo ergaster in Africa, Homo antecessor in Europe, or Homo floresiensis later in Indonesia. Others hold to a broad definition of Homo erectus, stretching across continents and ages. The question reflects the difficulty of interpreting fragmentary bones spread across vast timescales. Are these regional variations of one long-lived species or branches of a tree, each with its own fate? The answer is not settled. Beyond Africa, the wider planet stirs. Continental drift slowly shifts coastlines. Ice sheets advance and retreat in the far north. Volcanic eruptions scatter ash across the skies. Rivers carve valleys deeper. The Rift Valley itself, where many fossils lie, is the product of tectonic forces pulling land apart. Over millennia, lakes fill, dry, and shift. For Homo erectus, the planet is both a stage and a challenge. They move with the changes, step by step, following animals, water, and shelter. Their survival depends on reading these vast rhythms. In this early stage, they remain within Africa, yet signs already hint at expansion. Tools and fossils appear in the Caucasus at Dmanisi, Georgia, around 1.8 million years ago. That story belongs to another section, but its roots lie here. The first shadows of humanity, forming in African light, soon stretch outward to touch new lands. Homo erectus lives at a pace beyond our comprehension. Generations rise and fall across hundreds of thousands of years. A stone hand axe buried in the earth might have been made before the birth of our entire species. The span of their survival dwarfs the recorded history of modern humans. Yet their story begins simply. A new form of human, walking tall on the African plains, shaping stone, eating meat, perhaps learning to tame fire, and enduring. Their disappearance, far in the future, will raise questions. But for now, in this first chapter, they are only beginning. The light of Africa shines on their heavy brows. The wind carries dust across the savannah. The first great travelers of humanity prepare to step beyond their birthplace. Far away in deep time, the night falls over an ancient landscape. The air cools after a long, dry day. The savannah stretches wide, its grasses bending gently in the evening wind. Herds settle into silence. Predators move in shadows, and insects sing in endless chorus. In this stillness, a flicker appears. A glow, faint but steady, breaks the darkness. It is fire. Whether sparked by lightning or carried from a natural blaze, it becomes a companion to Homo erectus. The glow marks more than warmth. It signals a transformation, one of the most important in human history. The evidence for fire is fragile. Charcoal scatters easily. Ash dissolves in rain. Traces vanish over time. Yet in caves and shelters across Africa, archaeologists find hints. At Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, layers of burned bones and ash date to around 1 million years ago. Microscopic studies show plant fibers altered by heat, not by natural wildfires. This suggests human control, though the debate continues. Elsewhere, in Kenya's Rift Valley, reddened sediments and heated stone hint at ancient hearths. Some claim evidence stretches back even further, to 1.5 million years, but certainty remains elusive. Whether or not they mastered fire so early, Homo erectus knew its presence. Wild flames lit the night sky after storms. Smoke rose from distant hills when grasslands burned. To approach, to gather embers, to keep them alive through the dark. This required courage and skill. To tend flames with care, to shield them from wind, to feed them with branches, these acts were steps toward mastery. Fire, once contained, altered every rhythm of life. By firelight, nights grew longer. Darkness no longer meant retreat. Groups could sit together, the glow reflecting in their eyes, the warmth easing the chill. The flames kept predators at bay, turning caves and shelters into safer havens. Meat roasted in the heat, becoming softer, easier to chew, releasing more energy. Tubers dug from the soil, once tough and bitter, transformed into nourishment when cooked. Fire opened new diets, giving access to food that would otherwise be unusable. This dietary shift may have fueled brain growth, adding to the steady enlargement seen across Homo erectus fossils. Archaeologists studying burned bones at early sites note cut marks alongside scorch marks. This pairing suggests a sequence: butchery, then roasting. One lesser-known discovery comes from Swartkrans, another South African cave. Here's fragments of bones show patterns of burning. Some belong to large mammals, others to smaller animals. While the interpretation remains cautious, many believe these are remnants of meals roasted by ancient humans. Such moments hint at the beginnings of cuisine, simple, practical, but revolutionary. The mastery of fire carried mysteries. Did Homo erectus learn to kindle flames, or only to keep them alive once captured? Evidence for striking sparks with stone comes later, but the question lingers. If they lacked the ability to start fire, their survival depended on careful maintenance of embers, passing them from one hearth to another, guarding against loss. This fragile dependence shows both ingenuity and vulnerability. Fire could vanish with a rainstorm, forcing long waits until lightning struck again. Beyond diet and safety, fire shaped social life. Gatherings around a flame fostered communication. The flicker lit faces, making gestures clearer, expressions more visible. Some researchers suggest this supported the slow evolution of language, though direct proof is absent. Still, the quiet rhythm of voices in the night, the crackle of wood, the shared warmth, these moments must have woven bonds. They transformed scattered individuals into more cohesive groups. Planetary forces influenced these discoveries. The Pleistocene epoch brought cycles of cold and warmth. Glaciers advanced in the north, altering wind patterns across Africa. Dry seasons grew longer, grasslands stretched wider. Fires ignited more often. Lightning storms swept across open plains, sparking wild blazes. For Homo erectus, this natural theatre of flame offered both danger and opportunity. To watch the land burn, to follow animals fleeing, to salvage fire from smouldering wood, such experiences repeated across generations. The planet itself provided both the threat and the gift. Consider the scale of their world. A migration for water might cover distances greater than from Paris to Berlin. A lightning fire could sweep across grasslands wider than entire modern countries. Yet within this vastness, the glow of a single hearth mattered deeply. Fire shrank the world to a circle of light, enclosing safety against the dark beyond. Still, the record is incomplete. Some sites once thought to hold evidence of controlled fire later proved ambiguous. Natural processes can mimic hearths. Stones redden under pressure. Sediments darken. Bones scorch in wildfires. The debate among scientists continues. Was Homo erectus a true master of fire, or only an opportunist? Did mastery come early in Africa, or later in Eurasia? No single answer satisfies all. The uncertainty is part of the story. Even without certainty, the impact of fire echoes through time. Later humans refine it, build hearths with stone rings, create lamps of fat and fiber, smelt metals, power cities. But the first shadows of firelight on ancient faces belong to Homo erectus. Their heavy brows and strong jaws gleam in orange glow. The flames dance on stone tools lying nearby. Sparks drift upward, mingling with stars. The moment is simple, yet it changes everything. Fire also alters landscapes. Burned grasslands regrow with fresh shoots, drawing herbivores. Charcoal enriches soils. Patterns of vegetation shift under repeated fires. Whether by accident or design, human presence begins to leave ecological mark in the line between natural and human-shaped environments blurs. In this, Homo erectus is an early agent of planetary change, long before agriculture or cities. In the silence of prehistory, no words record their thoughts. Yet the evidence of ash and char tells a quiet story. Fire gave warmth, food, protection, and perhaps the seed of culture. It allowed nights of gathering, days of fuller meals, lives stretched a little longer. Even if their use was irregular, even if flames often died, the memory of fire carried forward. It became part of what it meant to be human. As time flows, Homo erectus spreads beyond Africa. Fire travels with them, whether in embers or in knowledge. Across Asia, traces of burned bones and heated stones appear, sometimes disputed, sometimes clear. Each site adds a fragment to the larger mosaic. The mastery of flame, fragile at first, strengthens with time. The image lingers under African skies. A circle of early humans sits close, the night vast around them. The flames crackle, embers glow red, smoke rises into the dark. Beyond the light, lions move silently, but within the circle, there is safety. Fire is theirs, at least for a while. In its glow, the long journey of humanity continues. The Rift Valley stretches wide across eastern Africa, a scar in the earth shaped by tectonic forces. Cliffs rise on either side, while lakes fill the depressions between. Around 2 million years ago, this valley is a cradle of human change. Water attracts animals. Plants grow dense along the shores, and stone lies scattered across open ground. For Homo erectus, it is a place of survival, learning, and innovation. The valley becomes one of the most important landscapes in the story of tools. Archaeologists working in Kubi Fora, Olduvai Gorge, and other sites uncover countless stone artifacts. At first glance, the pieces seem simple. Broken rocks with sharp edges. But patterns emerge. Flakes are struck from larger cores, edges shaped with repeated blows. The earliest tools are older one in style, continuing traditions from earlier humans like Homo habilis. Yet in time, a new form appears, the Acheulean hand axe. This tool, shaped on both sides to create a symmetrical edge, becomes a hallmark of Homo erectus. It is strong, versatile, and durable. Unlike earlier flakes, which are irregular, the hand axe shows intention, planning, and standardization. The Acheulean tradition lasts for over 1 million years. Few technologies in human history endure so long. Across Africa, Europe, and Asia, these tools remain almost unchanged. Their very stability shows their success. A hand axe could butcher an animal, cut wood, scrape hides, or dig roots. Its edges could be renewed with more strikes, extending its use. For groups moving through open savannas, this reliability was vital. One lesser-known discovery comes from Konso in Ethiopia. Here, some of the oldest known hand axes, dated to around 145 million years ago, have been found. Their shapes are already refined, showing that Homo erectus quickly mastered the craft. At other sites, hand axes reach impressive sizes, nearly 30 centimeters long, their symmetry almost artistic. These objects suggest not only utility but also a shared understanding of form, passed from generation to generation. Bone and fossil evidence give further clues. Animal remains at Olduvai show cut marks alongside carnivore tooth marks. This suggests Homo erectus competed with large predators for carcasses. Sometimes they reached animals first, bringing them down with group effort. At other times, they arrived later, scavenging what was left. Either way, tools made the difference. A sharp flake could slice through hide faster than teeth or claws. This allowed access to flesh and marrow before lions or hyenas returned. Stone, in this sense, became a survival advantage. But mysteries remain. Were hand axes truly multi-purpose tools, or did they have specific roles? Some scholars argue they were mainly butchery knives. Others suggest digging or woodworking. A few even propose they served social functions, objects displayed to signal skill or status. The debate continues. The stone does not record intent. Only fragments and wear patterns guide interpretation. Planetary forces again frame the story. The Rift Valley itself is shaped by tectonics, where the African plate pulls apart. Volcanic eruptions scatter ash, preserving layers like pages of a book. Lakes rise and fall with climate shifts, leaving fossils in their sediments. These natural archives allow scientists to date tools and bones with precision. When a hand axe is found beneath a volcanic ash layer, known to be 1.4 million years old, its age becomes clear. The Earth itself keeps time, marking human presence in stone. The scale of Homo erectus movements is vast. From a single site, stone raw materials might be carried for many kilometers. Archaeologists find that specific types of rock, like quartzite or obsidian, were chosen for their sharpness. Sometimes these stones traveled far from their source, suggesting planned gathering during seasonal movements. In a world without maps, memory and habit guided these journeys. A group might walk distances greater than from Rome to Athens in search of water, game, and stone. The bones of Homo erectus also speak. Skulls from the Rift Valley show gradual changes across time. Brain sizes increase, reaching averages of 900 cubic centimeters, larger than earlier hominins but smaller than modern humans. Faces remain projecting, with strong jaws and teeth adapted to tough diets. Leg bones are long and sturdy, built for walking across open plains. The skeleton of Turkana boy, mentioned earlier, stands as a clear example. His bones show not only endurance, but also growth patterns similar to ours, though his development may have been faster. One fascinating detail lies in the rhythm of growth. Studies of Turkana Boys' teeth suggest Homo erectus matured more quickly than modern humans. Childhood was shorter, leaving less time for learning, but allowing earlier reproduction. This pattern may explain their long survival, yet also mark a limit. A shorter childhood gives fewer years for teaching complex skills, perhaps one reason symbolic culture never fully emerged. The balance between survival and learning is delicate, shaped by biology as much as by environment. The Acheulean hand axe becomes a symbol of this balance. It is simple enough to teach in a short time, yet effective enough to sustain life. It does not require long apprenticeships, but it demands skill. Striking a stone to create symmetry requires control, vision, and memory. Each successful hand axe is a link between generations. Knowledge passed hand to hand, edge to edge. Still, as the archaeological record raises questions, why did this technology remain so stable for so long? Innovation appears slow. For over 1 million years, little changes in the basic design. Some suggest the design was already optimal, leaving little room for improvement. Others wonder whether limited social learning, constrained by shorter childhoods, prevented rapid experimentation. Whatever the reason, the Acheulean tradition endures almost unchanged while climates shift, animals evolve, and continents transform. The wider world reflects these rhythms. As glaciers advance in northern latitudes, Africa grows drier, lakes shrink, and savannas widen. Homo erectus adapts, moving with herds, carrying tools. The Rift Valley becomes both home and highway, linking regions of Africa together. From here, paths extend outward, leading eventually to Asia and beyond. But at this stage, the valley holds their core. The site is quiet but powerful. On the edge of a lake, under a pale sky, a figure crouches with a stone in hand. Careful strikes ring out, chip by chip, until a sharp edge forms. Around them lie bones, some cut, some cracked for marrow. In the distance, smoke rises from grass fires. The landscape is immense, the time scale almost endless. Yet the sound of stone against stone, repeated across centuries, ties it all together. Tools and bones scattered in the earth become voices from this ancient time. They tell of survival, of adaptation, of endurance. They show the first great technology of humanity, a technology that will remain longer than most civilizations. The Rift Valley, with its cliffs and lakes, its ash and fossils, holds these voices still. The story of Homo erectus does not remain bound to Africa. Step by step, they expand outward, crossing thresholds no human had passed before. The land itself invites movement. Shifting climates create corridors of grassland. Rivers carve valleys toward distant horizons, and animals migrate along paths that stretch far beyond the rift, following food, following water. Homo erectus takes its first journeys into Eurasia. These movements mark the earliest expansion of humanity across continents. The evidence of these journeys lies in the Caucasus Mountains, at a site called Dmanisi in modern-day Georgia. Here, archaeologists uncover skulls and bones dating to around 1.8 million years ago. The fossils are remarkable, among the oldest human remains found outside Africa. The skulls show a mix of traits: small brains, sloping foreheads, heavy brows, but bodies built for endurance. Alongside them lie simple stone tools, flakes and cores in older one's style. These travelers left Africa long before the Acheulean hand axe spread widely. Their technology was basic, but their movement was bold. The Dmanisi fossils reveal variety. One skull is long and narrow, another rounder, a third with unusual proportions. This diversity sparks debate. Are they all Homo erectus, or a separate species? Some suggest names like Homo georgicus, though most accept them as early erectus forms. Whatever their label, they show that the first expansion was not uniform. Humans carried variation with them, adapting as they went. Why did they leave Africa? The question remains open. Climate shifts likely played a role. Around 1.9 million years ago, Africa experienced wetter conditions, expanding savannas and drawing animals northward. Herds of antelope, elephants, and other prey moved through corridors into the Near East. Homo erectus, dependent on these resources, may have followed. Their long legs and endurance running suited them to these open landscapes. Rivers and valleys acted as guides, leading them slowly outward. One lesser-known detail from Dmanisi is the discovery of an individual with severe tooth loss. The skull shows that many teeth were missing during life. The sockets healed. This person must have survived for years without the ability to chew tough food. Such survival suggests group support. Others may have shared softer food or helped in other ways. It is a rare glimpse of social care in such an ancient context, showing that the first migrants carried more than tools. They carried cooperation. Beyond the Caucasus, evidence spreads east. Fossils and tools appear in China at sites such as Yuanmu, Gongwangling, and later Zhoukoudian. In Indonesia, on the island of Java, Homo erectus arrives perhaps as early as 1.5 million years ago. These movements require crossing rivers, adapting to forests and coasts, and enduring climates far from Africa's savannas. The spread covers thousands of kilometers, a scale larger than from Madrid to Moscow, achieved without maps or compasses, only persistence and adaptation. Planetary forces again shaped the path. During the early Pleistocene, global climates oscillate. Ice expands in the north, lowering sea levels, exposing land bridges between continents and islands. The Levant corridor, stretching from Africa into the Middle East, opens with grasslands during wetter phases. At other times, deserts close the way. Homo erectus must time movements with these rhythms, perhaps moving during favorable windows, then pausing for centuries when barriers return. The stone tools carried outward show both continuity and change. In Dmanisi, older one flakes dominate. In later Asian sites, Acheulean hand axes appear sporadically. Some regions, such as East Asia, show long traditions of simpler tools, leading scholars to propose the Movius line, a boundary beyond which hand axes are rare. The reasons remain debated. Did local materials limit possibilities? Did cultural traditions diverge? Or did migration split before Acheulean technology developed fully in Africa? The Movius line remains one of the enduring puzzles of early human dispersal. The encounters with new environments must have been profound. Forests in Southeast Asia offered fruits, bamboo, and different animals. Cold plains in northern China required endurance against frost. On islands like Java, volcanic landscapes and tropical coasts presented unique challenges. Homo erectus adapted, surviving in all these worlds. Their flexibility is evident in their long survival across regions. Still, the record is uneven. Fossils are fragmentary, tools scattered, dates uncertain. Each discovery shifts the timeline. A jaw here, a tooth there, a layer of ash above or below. The story of the first exodus remains patchy, filled with mysteries. Did groups move in waves, or was there a single early dispersal? Were some populations isolated for millennia, while others continued migrating? No single narrative holds all the answers. What is certain is scale. To walk from East Africa to the Caucasus requires thousands of kilometers across mountains, rivers, and plains. To reach Java requires even more, including crossings of open water during periods of low sea level. These journeys are immense, far beyond what earlier hominins had attempted. They mark a turning point, when humanity's range begins to stretch across the planet. The significance of these movements echoes forward. Later species, Neanderthals, Denisovans, and Homo sapiens will follow similar corridors. But Homo erectus is the pioneer. They show that humans can leave their birthplace, adapt to distant land, and endure in environments far from origin. Their presence in Eurasia for over 1 million years proves the success of this first migration. One unresolved mystery lingers. How intentional were these journeys? Did groups set out purposefully, or did movements unfold gradually, generation by generation, following herds without awareness of scale? The answer may be both. Human lifespans are short compared to migrations. A group might move only a few valleys in a lifetime, yet across centuries, the distance becomes continental. Intention or not, the result is the same. Humanity leaves Africa. Planetary observation reinforces the vastness of this step. While ice sheets lock water in the north, seas fall, exposing land bridges. Rivers flow stronger, guiding paths. Grasslands stretch like highways of green. Against these immense processes, Homo erectus is small, yet persistent. They adapt not by controlling the planet, but by fitting within its rhythms. Picture the moment. In a valley at dawn, a group rises to follow herds. They carry stone tools, bones of past meals scattered behind them. Step by step, they climb a ridge, and beyond it lies a new horizon. They do not know they are leaving Africa. They do not know they are beginning a story of planetary dispersal. Yet their footprints press into soil that no human has walked before. Wind sweeps across the landscape, erasing some, preserving others. The journey begins, stretching across millennia, across continents, across the shape of our species itself. Far to the southeast, beyond rivers, plains, and tropical forests, lies the island of Java. Today it is part of Indonesia, a chain of islands stretching across the equator. During the early Pleistocene, sea levels were lower, and Java formed part of a larger landmass known as Sunda. Grasslands and forests spread across the region, connecting it to mainland Asia during glacial periods. It was here, perhaps as early as 1.5 million years ago, that Homo erectus arrived. Their presence on this island would endure for longer than almost anywhere else, lasting until less than 120,000 years ago. Java holds the story of some of the last and most isolated survivors of this ancient species. The first evidence emerged in the 1890s, when Dutch anatomist Eugène Dubois discovered fossils near the Solo River at Trinil. A skull cap and a thigh bone revealed a being neither ape nor modern human. Dubois named it Pithecanthropus erectus, the upright ape man. His discovery marked one of the earliest recognitions of our deep evolutionary past. Later research confirmed these fossils as part of the broad species Homo erectus. Trinil remains a cornerstone in paleoanthropology, linking Java indelibly to the story of humanity. Over time, more finds came from other sites, Sangiran, Ngandong, and Mojokerto. Together they built a record stretching over 1 million years. At Sangiran, skulls show heavy brows and thick bone, with brain sizes around 1,000 cubic centimeters. At Ngandong, later fossils approach 1,100 cubic centimeters, close to early modern humans. The Mojokerto child, discovered in 1936, preserves the skull of an infant estimated at less than 2 years old. Its survival in volcanic deposits offers a rare glimpse into growth and development among Homo erectus. The persistence of these communities on Java is striking. While populations in other regions fade, here they endure. Archaeological layers show continued tool use, though often limited. Stone flakes and cores dominate, lacking the refined Acheulean hand axe common elsewhere. This absence defines part of a larger puzzle known as the Movius line, the boundary beyond which Acheulean tools are scarce. On Java, simple tools prevail, yet they serve well enough for survival across ages. One lesser-known detail comes from the Ngandong site along the Solo River. Excavations in the 1930s revealed a series of skulls and bones, often called the Solo Man fossils. Recent dating suggests these remains are surprisingly young, between 120,000 and 108,000 years old. If correct, Homo erectus lived here long after they had vanished elsewhere. This makes Java one of the final refugees of the species, holding out as the rest of the world changed around them. But mysteries remain. Why did Homo erectus survive here so long, and why did they eventually vanish? The geography of islands offers part of the answer. During glacial periods, low seas connected Java to mainland Asia, allowing migration of animals and humans. During interglacials, seas rose, isolating the island. This cycle created alternating phases of contact and separation. Isolation may have protected populations, allowing them to persist without competition from later species. Yet it also limited innovation, confining them to simple tool traditions. The environment of Java was dynamic. Volcanic eruptions reshaped the land, rivers shifted, forests spread and retreated. Fossil animals found with Homo erectus include elephants, stegodons, rhinoceroses, and giant cattle. These provided food but also danger. Cut marks on bones suggest butchery, though whether from hunting or scavenging is debated. The lush environment gave resources, but also posed challenges of disease, floods, and eruptions. Planetary forces framed these cycles. As glaciers expanded in the north, sea levels dropped by more than 100 meters, exposing wide plains across Sunda. Rivers flowed into distant basins, creating corridors for migration. When ice melted, seas rose, drowning lowlands, isolating Java as an island. These global rhythms determined the fate of Homo erectus. Their survival depended not only on tools and endurance, but also on the vast movements of oceans and ice. The long survival on Java raises questions about contact with other humans. Did they ever meet early Homo sapiens moving through Southeast Asia? Fossil evidence is sparse, and timelines remain uncertain. If they overlapped, it would be one of the last encounters between Erectus and our own species. No clear signs of interbreeding appear in genetic studies, but absence of evidence is not proof of absence. The island setting complicates the record, leaving space for mystery. One fascinating scale of survival is time itself. From their first arrival, perhaps 1.5 million years ago, to their last presence around 120,000 years ago, Homo erectus lived on Java for over 1 million years. By comparison, modern civilizations are measured in only thousands. Even our species, Homo sapiens, has so far existed for less than 300,000 years. The endurance of Java's erectus surpasses most of human history, a quiet testament to adaptability. Still, their story ends. By around 100,000 years ago, they disappear from the record. Rising seas may have isolated groups to extinction. Competition from modern humans, arriving later, may have pushed them aside. Climate shifts may have altered resources beyond recovery. Perhaps it was not one cause, but many together, converging across time. The details remain uncertain, but the silence of the record speaks clearly. The last of Java's erectus are gone. The persistence of their fossils in volcanic sediments holds another clue. Some remains are preserved in lahar deposits, flows of mud and ash from eruptions. These suggest sudden disasters, events that could sweep away entire groups. The combination of volcanic risk, rising seas, and ecological pressures may have made survival impossible, no matter how long they endured before. Picture the landscape as it once was. Rivers wind through low forests, elephants graze in open meadows, volcanoes smoke on distant horizons. Near a riverbank, a group shapes stone flakes, their movements practiced, repeated across centuries. Children play nearby, their voices lost in the wind. They cannot know they are among the last of their kind. For them, life is ordinary: food, water, shelter. Yet from the view of deep time, they are the final echo of a lineage stretching back 2 million years. The legacy of Java's Homo erectus is both endurance and disappearance. They show that humans can adapt to islands, survive isolation, and persist across immense spans. They also show the limits of adaptation, the eventual vulnerability of even the most enduring species. The fossils of Trinil, Sangiran, Moyokerto, and Ngandong remain as quiet witnesses, stone and bone beneath tropical soil. Their story invites reflection. While the world changes, some humans persist in quiet corners, surviving until forces greater than themselves sweep them away. Java's ancient survivors lived longer than most of our kind has yet existed. Their disappearance closes one of the longest chapters in human history, leaving only bones in river mud, skulls in volcanic ash, and tools scattered on old ground. The Asian continent stretches immense before Homo erectus. From the dry savannas of Africa to the forests of India, the floodplains of China, and the islands of Southeast Asia, landscapes change with every step. To move across them, humans must face not only distance but also water and weather. Rivers block paths, monsoons sweep across plains, and coastlines rise and fall with the rhythm of ice and sea. The journeys of Homo erectus are written in these crossings, each one both a challenge and a bridge to new lands. The monsoon is one of the great forces shaping Asia. Seasonal winds blow moist air inland during summer, bringing heavy rains, and reverse direction in winter, carrying dry air outward. These cycles feed rivers like the Ganges, Mekong, and Yangtze. For Homo erectus, such patterns determined where grass grew, where herds moved, and where water could be found. The rhythm of survival matched the rhythm of the monsoon. To follow animals, humans moved with seasons. adjusting routes as rains filled valleys or left them dry. Evidence of these movements appears in scattered sites across South and Southeast Asia. In India, stone tools appear in the Soan Valley and the Narmada region, some over 1 million years old. In China, early sites like Gongwangling preserve both tools and fossils, dated to nearly 1.2 million years. In Southeast Asia, layers of volcanic soil on Java preserve communities lasting through hundreds of millennia. The spread of these sites traces the pathways of migration, often running parallel to great rivers or clustered in fertile basins. Crossing rivers was essential. Even small streams posed obstacles without bridges or boats. Fossils suggest that Homo erectus was strong and capable of endurance swimming, but large rivers required more than strength. During glacial periods, when sea levels fell, wide floodplains narrowed, exposing crossings. At other times, rivers swelled with monsoon rains, becoming barriers. Groups may have followed seasonal cycles, crossing when waters ran low, then spreading into new territories when passage opened. One lesser-known discovery comes from the island of Flores, east of Java. Here, stone tools over 800,000 years old have been found, yet the island was never connected to the mainland, even during the lowest sea levels. This means Homo erectus, or a related species, somehow crossed deep water. The method is unknown. Perhaps they clung to driftwood, or rafts formed by accident. Perhaps they intentionally lashed logs together. No traces remain, only tools on the island's soil. Yet the presence itself is undeniable. Flores stands as proof that early humans could cross waters once thought impossible. The mystery of Flores ties into a larger question. How far did Homo erectus's seafaring reach? Other islands in Wallacea, the region between Asia and Australia, hold clues, though evidence is scarce. If Erectus reached Flores, could they have gone further east? Did they ever approach Sahul, the ancient continent linking Australia and New Guinea? Most scholars think not, leaving that crossing to Homo sapiens tens of thousands of years later. But the debate continues, for a single find could reshape the story. The monsoon winds themselves may have aided movement. Storms break branches, flood valleys, and set rafts adrift. Observing such forces, early humans could have seen patterns. A tree carried downstream might float across a channel. An animal swept into water might survive on debris. Whether by accident or observation, crossings became part of their world. The vast scale of Asia demanded it. Planetary forces frame these events. Ice sheets advance and retreat in the north, lowering seas during glacial phases by over 100 meters. Exposed shelves link islands and continents, turning seas into plains. When ice melts, waters rise, cutting land into fragments. Coastlines shift back and forth across millennia. For Homo erectus, these changes redraw maps without warning, opening paths one age, closing them the next. The challenges of climate are recorded in fossils. At Zhoukoudian, near Beijing, layers of ash, bones, and tools show that Homo erectus endured cold northern winters. At the same time, in tropical Indonesia, fossils show adaptation to humid forests and volcanic soils. From monsoon plains to icy plateaus, their range is immense. Few species adapt across such variety. Yet Erectus achieves it, surviving for over 1 million years in Asia. Still, mysteries remain. How coordinated were these migrations? Did groups intentionally push into new regions, or did movements unfold slowly, almost unnoticed? Archaeological evidence suggests small, scattered populations rather than great waves. Each community left fragments of stone, bones buried by chance, clues faint against time. The scale of their spread suggests persistence rather than planning, a slow drift guided by rivers, rains, and winds. One striking scale comparison illustrates the challenge. To move from Africa into China covers more than 7,000 kilometers, greater than the distance from Cairo to London, repeated 5 times. Yet Homo erectus achieved this without wheels, maps, or metal tools. Each step was small, each crossing local. Only across thousands of generations did footprints accumulate into continental dispersal. Among the most evocative finds is the Narmada skull from India, discovered near the Narmada River. It represents one of the few Homo erectus fossils in the subcontinent. Its features are robust, with a large brain case and heavy brows. The river that preserved it once flowed through a landscape shaped by monsoons, linking erectus to rhythms still present today. The skull remains a solitary witness to communities now vanished, their tools scattered in the soil. Crossing rivers also shaped social life. To ford a stream or survive a flood required cooperation. Groups may have carried children or elders, shared knowledge of safe shallows, and timed movements with seasonal lows. These acts reinforced bonds, making survival collective. The fossil from Dmanisi, showing healed tooth loss, suggests that care already marked their lives. River crossings may have demanded the same compassion and patience, traits that bound them together as much as stone tools or fire. In Southeast Asia, volcanic eruptions added further trials. The layers at Sangiran and Mojokerto record ash falls burying tools and bones. Rivers choked with volcanic debris shifted courses suddenly. For Homo erectus, survival required both endurance and memory, knowing where to move when old paths vanished. The land itself was unstable, yet they persisted for centuries in its embrace. The silence of their passing leaves questions unanswered. How did they view rivers? Were they boundaries or lifelines? Did they sense the seasonal return of rains as promise or threat? The evidence cannot say. Only the stone tools on both sides of valleys suggest their choices. Each flake and core is a footprint in absence, marking that a crossing took place, even if the moment is lost. Picture the scene. A swollen river runs brown with monsoon rain. On one bank, a group waits, their stone tools tied in bundles, children held close. They watch the water subside, searching for a safe ford. Days pass. Finally, the flood withdraws, leaving shallows and sandbars. One by one, they step forward, water at their knees, then their waists, until they reach the far side. Behind them, footprints wash away. Ahead of them lies new land, new resources, new challenges. In such crossings, and repeated endlessly, the story of Homo erectus expands. Far to the north, beyond the tropical forests and monsoon plains, lies the vast heartland of China. Here, the land opens into rolling plains, river valleys, and limestone hills cut through by caves. It is in this region that Homo erectus endures for hundreds of thousands of years. The sites are numerous, the evidence abundant, and the story stretches across immense spans of time. Among them, none is more famous than Zhoukoudian, a cave complex near modern-day Beijing. Within its dark chambers, the bones of early humans and the traces of firelight speak of long survival at the edge of cold climates. Zhoukoudian first came to light in the 1920s when excavations revealed both stone tools and human fossils. Over the years, dozens of individuals were uncovered, their skulls showing the heavy brows, sloping foreheads, and thick bones typical of Homo erectus. They became known as Peking man, one of the most iconic discoveries in paleoanthropology. Alongside the bones lay thousands of stone flakes, cores, and fragments, evidence of tool-making inside the cave itself. Charred bones and ash layers hinted at the control of fire, though debates about the exact nature of the burning persist. The significance of Zhoukoudian is immense. The fossils date to between 770,000 and 400,000 years ago, placing Homo erectus here for an extraordinary length of time. This endurance shows their ability to adapt to climates colder than those of Africa or Southeast Asia. Winters in northern China can be severe, with freezing temperatures and snow. To survive, humans needed fire, shelter, and cooperation. The caves provided protection, the tools gave access to food, and fire, if truly mastered, offered warmth and safety against the dark. Yet mysteries cloud the story. During World War II, many of the original Peking man fossils vanished while being transported for safekeeping. Only casts and detailed descriptions remain, while the originals are lost. This absence haunts the field, leaving researchers to rely on fragments and replicas. Still, new excavations at Zhoukoudian and other sites continue to uncover further evidence, filling in pieces of the puzzle. One lesser-known detail lies in the microfauna, the tiny remains of rodents and other small animals found in the cave sediments. These species shift over time, reflecting changes in climate and environment. By studying them, scientists reconstruct the ancient landscapes inhabited by Homo erectus. The evidence shows cycles of cold and warmth, aligning with the great glacial rhythms of the Pleistocene. Thus, the fossils of Peking man are tied directly to planetary-scale changes, their lives unfolding against the backdrop of shifting ice and climate. Zhoukoudian is not alone. Other Chinese sites, such as Lantian, Hexian, and later Nihiwan Basin, preserve further fossils and tools. At Lantian, a skull from around 1.6 million years ago shows some of the earliest evidence of Homo erectus in East Asia. At Hexian, cranial remains over 400,000 years old show slightly different shapes, hinting at regional variation. The Nihiwan Basin, with its layers of stone tools and animal bones, suggests long occupation in an open plain environment. Together, these sites trace a continuous presence across more than 1 million years. The tools in China raise questions. Unlike in Africa and Europe, Acheulean hand axes are rare in East Asia. Instead, simpler flake tools dominate. This divide, first noted by archaeologist Hallam Movius, led to the idea of the Movius line. West of this boundary, hand axes are common; east of it, they are scarce. The reasons remain uncertain. Some argue that suitable raw materials were lacking, making large hand axes impractical. Others suggest cultural traditions diverged, with Eastern populations relying on simpler, more expedient technologies. Whatever the reason, the absence of hand axes in China highlights the diversity of Homo erectus adaptations. Still, these tools served their purpose. Animal bones at Zhoukoudian bear cut marks, showing butchery with sharp flakes. Burned fragments suggest cooking, though natural fires remain a possible source. Large game such as deer, horse, and even elephants appear in the faunal record. Smaller animals, hares, birds, and fish, also show signs of use. The diet was varied, adapted to local availability. Stone flakes may look crude, but they were effective. Planetary forces once again frame this story. The advance and retreat of glaciers altered habitats, pushing forests south and expanding grasslands. Rivers like the Yellow River shifted courses, cutting new valleys. Wind-blown loess deposited thick layers of silt, creating fertile soils. Homo erectus lived within these rhythms, adjusting to changing landscapes over millennia. Their survival across such vast timescales demonstrates resilience, even without rapid innovation. A mystery lingers in the skulls themselves. Some show features approaching later humans, with larger brain cases and subtler brows. Others retain more primitive traits. Were these gradual changes within one species, or signs of multiple lineages overlapping? The answer is debated. Some propose that Chinese Homo erectus may have contributed directly to later populations in the region. Others see them as a separate branch, ultimately replaced by modern humans arriving much later. The genetic evidence is not conclusive, leaving the question open. The scale of their survival remains extraordinary. From the earliest Lantian fossils around 1.6 million years ago to the later Jocudian layers near 400,000 years, Homo erectus lived in China for over 1 million years. Few species endure such spans in one region. Their persistence shows not only adaptability but also stability. Generations rose and fell, each living ordinary lives, finding food, tending fire, shaping stone, while continents shifted and ice sheets grew. One striking observation comes from tooth wear. Studies of Peking man teeth show patterns suggesting not only chewing, but also possible use as tools, clamping and pulling fibers, softening hides, or holding objects. If correct, the body itself became part of the toolkit, extending the reach of simple flakes. Such details bring small glimpses of daily life, the habits that sustained survival across centuries. Picture the cave as it once was. The limestone walls echo with the crack of stone on stone. A hearth glows faintly, smoke curling upward into dark crevices. Outside, cold winds sweep the plain, snow gathering in hollows. Inside, warmth lingers. Stone flakes scatter on the ground. Bones lie split for marrow. The faces of Homo erectus glow in firelight, their heavy brows casting shadows. They sit together, secure against the winter night. The echoes of their presence remain in the soil, in fragments of bone, in layers of ash. Though the original fossils may be lost, the record is still strong. China preserves one of the richest legacies of Homo erectus, showing endurance across climates, landscapes, and ages. These ancient humans adapted not by constant innovation, but by constancy, by repeating simple but effective patterns, by aligning their lives with the rhythms of earth and sky. Their story in the Chinese plains is not one of dramatic leaps, but of quiet persistence. For more than 1 million years they endured here, leaving echoes that still resonate in stone and bone. In their survival, we see both the resilience and the limits of early humanity, shaped always by the vast forces of climate and time. The Pleistocene epoch unfolds as an age of ice. Across hundreds of thousands of years, glaciers grow and retreat, reshaping the face of the planet. Ice sheets advance from the poles, locking water and lowering seas. When the climate warms, the ice melts, seas rise, and rivers swell. These cycles repeat again and again, marking the world in rhythms far beyond a human lifespan. For Homo erectus, these cold winds and shifting seasons form the backdrop of survival. In Africa, glacial periods bring dryness. Grasslands expand as forests shrink. lakes retreat into salt flats, and rivers dwindle. In Asia, winters grow harsher, pushing forests south and covering northern plains in frost. For a species born in warm savannas, such challenges demand adaptation, yet Homo erectus endures, adjusting to climates both hot and cold, wet and dry. Their resilience is one reason they last nearly 2 million years. The fossil record reveals how these cycles shaped them. At Zhoukoudian in northern China, evidence shows they survived freezing winters. Layers of ash suggest the use of fire, whether captured or kindled. Animal bones reveal varied diets, from deer and horse to smaller prey. In Indonesia, by contrast, Homo erectus thrives in tropical conditions, living among volcanoes and rivers. These contrasts show flexibility across extremes. The same species endures frost in the north and monsoon rains in the south. One lesser-known site lies in Nihewan Basin, also in China. Here, stone tools date back more than 1 million years, scattered in lakebed sediments. These layers preserve not only tools but also pollen grains, showing changes in vegetation with each climate cycle. By analyzing such grains, scientists reconstruct landscapes of shifting grasses, shrubs, and forests. The story of Homo erectus is tied directly to these cycles, their presence recorded in sediments shaped by cold and warmth. Planetary scale changes make the challenge clear. During peak glaciations, sea levels drop by over 100 meters. Coastlines extend far outward, exposing continental shelves. Asia connects more broadly to islands, opening paths for migration. When ice retreats, seas rise, drowning lowlands, cutting communities apart. Homo erectus must navigate these vast transformations without foresight, relying only on memory and habit. Their survival shows a remarkable ability to align with forces larger than themselves. The cold also influences body form. Fossil evidence hints at variation across regions. In northern populations, bodies may have been stockier, conserving heat. In tropical populations, forms remained leaner, shedding heat more effectively. Such patterns echo later in Neanderthals and modern humans, showing the deep influence of climate on anatomy. Even within one species, adaptation molds the body in response to environment. Mysteries remain about how they endured in extreme cold. Did they make clothing from hides? No clear evidence survives, though cut marks on animal bones hint at hide processing. Did they build shelters beyond caves? Few traces exist, but post holes at some sites suggest simple structures. Without symbolic artifacts, their ingenuity is harder to see, yet survival itself testifies to resourcefulness. They lived where winters froze rivers solid, where winds swept lows across plains, where nights stretched long. Endurance required more than instinct. It required learned behavior, shared across generations. At the same time, warm interglacials brought expansion. Forests returned to northern regions, rivers filled, and animals spread widely. During these times, Homo erectus may have moved northward, following herds into fertile valleys. Then, as cold returned, they withdrew into refuges. These oscillations left patterns of presence and absence in the fossil record, not extinction but retreat and return. Their persistence across these cycles shows adaptation not through invention but through movement. Scale adds perspective. A single glacial cycle lasts tens of thousands of years, longer than all of recorded human history. Within one cycle, hundreds of generations rise and fall. To Homo erectus, the advance of ice or the drying of lakes may have seemed eternal, Yet over deep time, these were rhythms, repeating endlessly. They did not know they lived in an ice age, yet their lives were shaped by its pulse. One striking detail comes from Java. Fossils there show Homo erectus living through volcanic eruptions and environmental shifts triggered by global climate. Even as ice advanced in the north, equatorial regions felt the effects, changing rainfall, altered vegetation, shifting coastlines. The survival of Homo erectus in such unstable environments shows an ability to persist across planetary extremes. Another layer of mystery surrounds the pace of their cultural change. While climates shifted dramatically, stone tools changed slowly. Acheulean hand axes in Africa remained similar for over 1 million years. In East Asia, simpler flakes endured even longer. This stability contrasts with the instability of climate. Perhaps the tools were already sufficient, or perhaps shorter childhoods limited innovation. Whatever the reason, cultural change lagged far behind environmental change, yet survival continued. Planetary forces also reshaped migration. Lower sea levels during glacials opened corridors into regions otherwise unreachable. At times, Homo erectus could walk from mainland Asia into what are now islands. At other times, seas cut them off, isolating populations for millennia. These cycles of connection and isolation may explain both persistence and diversity within the species. Picture a scene at the height of a glacial winter. A group of Homo erectus gathers near a cave mouth, wind howling outside. Fire glows faintly within, its warmth precious. Outside, the plain lies white with frost. Animals scarce. Within, tools are reshaped. Bones cracked for marrow. Hides perhaps draped for warmth. Survival is narrow, yet possible. Centuries later, the ice will retreat. Rivers will swell. Forests will return. The descendants of these humans will step out into a changed land, repeating the cycle again. The cold winds of the Pleistocene leave their mark in fossils and sediments, in bones weathered by time, in tools buried beneath loess. They also leave questions unanswered. Did Homo erectus suffer local extinctions during the harshest glacials, only to return later? Or did small groups endure in refuge, preserving the lineage until climates eased? The evidence is thin, yet the outcome is clear. Across nearly 2 million years, they never vanished entirely until very late. Their story in this epoch is one of endurance, not triumph. They did not conquer the Ice Age with new inventions. They survived it with persistence, moving when needed, enduring when possible, adjusting within limits. Their legacy is measured not in art or monuments, but in time, centuries upon centuries, spanning cycles larger than human memory. In the sweep of the Pleistocene, Homo erectus stands as a figure of resilience. Cold winds rise, glaciers spread, seas fall and rise again. Yet through it all, they remain. Their bones rest in caves and riverbeds across 3 continents, silent witnesses to an age of ice. The endurance of their lineage becomes part of the deeper history of humanity, echoing through time until the last survivors fade. As Homo erectus spread across Africa and Asia, they were not alone. The long span of their existence overlapped with other humans, some closely related, others distinct branches of the same family tree. For nearly 2 million years, they shared landscapes with evolving lineages, and in these encounters lie both mystery and transformation. The edges of their range became contact zones, where the paths of different humans crossed. By the middle of the Pleistocene, new forms of humanity had emerged. In Europe and Western Asia, Homo heidelbergensis appeared, often considered a descendant of Erectus. From this lineage, Neanderthals arose, their robust bodies adapted to cold glacial climates. In Siberia, the Denisovans lived, known today not from skeletons but from fragments of bone and teeth, and above all, from DNA. And in Africa, Homo sapiens took shape, our own species emerging around 300,000 years ago. These branches lived at different times and places, yet all overlapped with the long shadow of Homo erectus. The question of contact remains open. Did Erectus meet Neanderthals in Western Asia? Did they encounter Denisovans farther east? Did they ever cross paths with early sapiens moving out of Africa? The fossil record gives no clear answer, but timelines suggest possibilities. The youngest Erectus fossils on Java date to less than 120,000 years ago, a period when modern humans were already spreading. Encounters could have occurred, though no direct evidence survives. One lesser-known detail comes from the island of Flores. Here, a small-bodied human species, Homo floresiensis, lived until about 50,000 years ago. With brains much smaller than Erectus and stature under 110 centimeters, they raise questions of origin. Some propose they descended from Homo erectus, isolated on the island and shrinking through generations of limited resources. If so, Flores preserves not only the endurance of Erectus but also its transformation into something entirely new. The broader mystery lies in genetics. Neanderthals and Denisovans left traces in the DNA of modern humans, proof of interbreeding. But Homo erectus left none, or none that can be clearly identified. Does this mean encounters never occurred, or that their genetic legacy was diluted over time? Without preserved DNA from Erectus fossils, the question remains unanswered. Bones and tools suggest presence, but the silent record of genes gives no voice. Planetary forces shaped these contact zones. During glacial periods, low seas exposed land bridges, linking Asia with islands and creating corridors for movement. During interglacials, rising waters isolated populations, keeping them apart. Climate change, thus, alternately, brought humans together and drove them apart. Over tens of thousands of years, these shifts created opportunities for contact, even if fleeting. At Zhoukoudian in China, Homo erectus lived for hundreds of thousands of years. Later, the same caves would be occupied by early Homo sapiens. At sites in Southeast Asia, layers of fossils suggest long sequences of human presence, though not always continuous. Each stratum may represent not replacement but overlap, different species living in the same regions at different times. The line between contact and succession blurs in such records. The scale of these encounters is difficult to grasp. A migration of Homo sapiens out of Africa around 70,000 years ago covered thousands of kilometers. Overlapping with the last Erectus in Java would mean two species, separated by nearly 2 million years of evolution, walking the same ground. For comparison, the distance in time between us and the earliest civilizations is only a few thousand years. The potential meeting of Erectus and sapiens is therefore a bridge across immense spans. Yet silence dominates. Tools remain simple. Bones show little sign of cultural complexity. Unlike Neanderthal, who left cave art and ornaments, Homo erectus left no clear evidence of symbolism. If encounters occurred, they may have been brief, unnoticed by either side as anything more than competition for space and food. The absence of symbolic traces suggests that Erectus lived and vanished without leaving cultural echoes beyond stone and bone. Still, their presence at the edges of the world influenced later humans indirectly. By occupying Asia for so long, they adapted landscapes, shaped ecosystems, and established paths that others would later follow. The very survival of Homo erectus for nearly 2 million years proved that humans could live in forests, plains, islands, and caves far from Africa. Their endurance laid the groundwork for later expansions. One unresolved scientific mystery is whether Homo erectus populations contributed to the Denisovans. The genetic identity of Denisovans remains only partly known. Their DNA shows divergence from Neanderthals, but with signals suggesting deeper ancestry in Asia. Some researchers speculate that an Asian branch of Erectus may have mixed with Denisovans, leaving traces that remain hidden in genomes today. Without more fossils, the connection is uncertain, a shadow in the record. Another planetary observation reinforces the fragility of these encounters. As glaciers advanced, habitats compressed, grasslands shrank, deserts expanded, coastlines retreated. Populations of humans, once scattered widely, were forced into smaller refuges. Here, contact became more likely. Rivers and valleys turned into corridors, concentrating species together. Yet as climates shifted again, groups dispersed, leaving little behind. The waxing and waning of ice shaped not only landscapes but also the chances of meeting. Picture the possibilities. Along a riverbank in Southeast Asia, Erectus groups gather water as herds move past. On the opposite bank, perhaps another human species watches, carrying tools of similar stone but shaped differently. Neither side knows the significance, neither senses the deep time between them. The encounter may last only moments, then vanish into the flow of centuries. Or perhaps they never met at all. Their ranges brushing but not crossing, their stories parallel but separate. The silence of the evidence leaves both options open. Even without clear encounter, the edges of their range matter. They represent the limits of adaptation, the farthest points reached before extinction. In Europe, Erectus gave way to Heidelbergensis and Neanderthals. In Asia, they lingered longer, in Java and northern China, before fading. In Africa, they were ancestors, replaced by later humans, yet remembered in fossils. Their legacy is therefore both direct and indirect, shaping others even as they themselves disappeared. The story of Homo erectus at the edges of the world is one of proximity without clarity. They lived alongside other humans, sometimes for millennia, yet left little record of contact. They endured climate shifts, sea level changes, and ecological pressures, surviving where others rose and fell. But in the end, their line ended, leaving the future to other branches. In the silence of prehistory, these encounters remain shadows. The bones of Erectus, the DNA of Denisovans, the art of Neanderthals, and the spread of sapiens all intertwine. But the threads are faint. The edges of the world hold mysteries that may never be fully known. Yet what remains is enough, the recognition that Homo erectus was not alone, that the human story has always been a web of branches, crossing and fading under the cold winds of time. The story of Homo erectus is written not in books or monuments, but in fragments of bone and stone scattered across continents. Each discovery is a clue, each fossil a faint echo of lives once lived, yet the record is incomplete. Bones crumble, soils erode, rivers bury and reveal. The result is a mosaic with missing pieces, a story told in glimpses rather than full chapters. From Africa to Asia, the fossils of Homo erectus invite as many questions as they answer. The earliest remains come from East Africa. At sites such as Kubifora and Olduvai Gorge, skull fragments and jaws dating to nearly 2 million years ago show the first clear traits of the species. Thick bones, heavy brows, long skulls, and expanding brain cases distinguish them from earlier humans. Yet even here, variation abounds. Some fossils are more robust, others more gracile, their differences sparking debate about whether they belong to one species or several. The debate extends across continents. In Africa, some researchers prefer the name Homo ergaster for early forms, arguing they differ enough from later Asian erectus to warrant separation. Others see them all as one long-lived species, with regional variations but shared identity. The question is more than naming, it touches on how we understand human evolution itself. Is Homo erectus a single, adaptable species spread widely, or a cluster of related lineages evolving in parallel? One lesser-known fossil complicates the story. At Dmanisi in Georgia, 5 skulls were uncovered, dating to about 1.8 million years ago. They vary greatly in shape and size, some with small brains, others larger, some narrow-faced, others broad. Yet they all come from the same site and time. This diversity challenges assumptions. If so much variation can exist within one community, perhaps the wide range of erectus fossils across continents also reflects variation within a single species. The Dmanisi find suggests that what once looked like separate species may instead be part of one flexible lineage. The fossil record also holds mysteries of absence. In many regions, Homo erectus lived for hundreds of thousands of years, yet fossils are scarce. The gaps may result from preservation. Tropical climates dissolve bone, rivers scatter remains, caves collapse, or they may reflect low population densities, with few individuals leaving traces. Unlike later humans, Erectus did not bury their dead in deliberate ways, leaving their bones to chance. The result is silence across vast regions, broken only by occasional finds. Planetary forces shaped this record. Volcanic eruptions buried some fossils in ash, preserving them for discovery. Rivers carried bones into sediments, sealing them away. Shifting coastlines drowned sites beneath rising seas, hiding them forever. The record we see today is not the full story, but the fragment that geology allowed to survive. Another unresolved mystery lies in dating. Many fossils were found decades ago, before modern methods of radiometric analysis. Their ages remain uncertain, sometimes shifting by hundreds of thousands of years as new techniques are applied. The Nandong fossils of Java, for example, long thought to be 500,000 years old, were recently redated to around 120,000 years. This change rewrote the timeline of erectus survival, showing they lived far later than once believed. But even this date remains debated, with some arguing for older ages. The uncertainty reflects the difficulty of pinning deep time to precise years. Fossil fragments themselves carry stories. A tooth can reveal diet through microscopic scratches, showing whether meat or plants dominated. A femur can reveal body shape, suggesting endurance, walking or running. A skull can reveal brain size, hinting at cognitive capacity. Yet these interpretations are limited. Brain size alone does not equal intelligence. Wear on teeth may reflect not only diet, but also tool use, as mouths clamped hides or fibers. Every fossil invites caution, a reminder that lives cannot be fully reconstructed from bone alone. One lesser-known detail comes from the Mojokerto child of Java. This fossil preserves the skull of an infant less than 2 years old, dating to over 1 million years ago. Its preservation is rare, for young bones seldom survive. The skull shows brain growth patterns similar to humans, but with differences in pace. Studies suggest Homo erectus may have matured faster, with shorter childhoods than our own species. If true, this would limit time for learning, shaping the cultural possibilities of the species. Such subtle details remind us how biology and life history influence the arc of survival. The absence of symbolic artifacts in the fossil record is another puzzle. While Neanderthals and modern humans left beads, carvings, and cave paintings, Homo erectus left none. Their tools are durable, their bones abundant, but their symbolic world, if it existed, remains invisible. Did they lack symbolic thought altogether, or did they express it in ways that left no trace? Perhaps they used perishable materials like wood, fiber, or body paint. Without evidence, the question remains open, another silence in the record. The planetary scale of their survival magnifies the mystery. Homo erectus lived longer than any other human species, nearly 2 million years, yet their story is still fragmentary. Whole regions, like much of South Asia, yield only a few fossils. Large gaps in time leave questions unanswered. Did populations persist continuously, or vanish and reappear? Were they replaced by other humans, or did they evolve into them? The fossil record cannot yet tell. Still, each discovery shifts the picture. A single jawbone in a Chinese cave, a skull in African soil, a tooth from an Indonesian riverbank, each adds a brushstroke to the canvas. The image is incomplete, yet clear enough to show endurance. These fossils, scattered though they are, confirm that Homo erectus walked farther, lived longer, and adapted more widely than almost any of their kin. The scale of their fossil record also dwarfs ours. A hand axe buried for 1.5 million years has survived longer than all human writing. A skull in volcanic ash has endured longer than any city. The silence of the record is therefore not emptiness, but a reflection of deep time. What survives is extraordinary precisely because so much has vanished. Picture the excavation of a cave floor. Archaeologists kneel in silence, brushing soil from a fragment of bone. The piece is small, yet it holds the weight of a life lived nearly 1 million years ago. Around it lie tools, flakes of stone, charred animal bones. Each layer speaks of presence, of groups who sat where the cave now lies open to air. The fossil record may be incomplete, but in such moments it opens a window into the deep past. In the end, the mysteries remain as important as the answers. The fossil record of Homo erectus is both fragile and vast, incomplete yet enduring. It shows a species that lived through ice ages and monsoons, spread across continents, and survived longer than almost any other human. But it also shows how much is lost, how many questions remain. In its gaps and fragments, the record invites humility. The bones of Homo erectus speak, but softly, leaving echoes rather than voices, mysteries rather than certainty. Toward the end of the long story of Homo erectus, the focus narrows again to Southeast Asia. It is here, on the island of Java, that some of the youngest fossils are found, evidence of survival long after other populations had disappeared. These final holdouts endured as the world changed around them, clinging to existence even as new species emerged and climates shifted. Their story is not one of triumph, but of persistence, lasting far longer than might have been expected. The Nandong site, along the Solo River in central Java, holds the key. Excavated first in the 1930s, it yielded a remarkable collection of skulls and bones. At least a dozen individuals are represented, their heavy brows and thick skulls unmistakably Homo erectus. The discovery immediately raised questions. How long ago had these humans lived, and how late had the species survived? For decades. The fossils were difficult to date, their age uncertain. Some estimates place them at 500,000 years old, others much younger. Recent advances in dating methods, using uranium series and luminescence techniques, suggest they are between 120,000 and 108,000 years old. If correct, these fossils represent some of the very last members of the species, living at a time when modern humans were already beginning to spread across Asia. One lesser-known detail from Ngandong is the association of human bones with those of large mammals. Fossils of stegodons, extinct relatives of elephants, lie in the same layers, along with remains of rhinoceroses and giant cattle. These animals formed part of the ecosystem that sustained Homo erectus. Cut marks on some bones suggest butchery, though the evidence is debated. The presence of such large animals indicates a rich but demanding environment, requiring strength and cooperation to exploit. The persistence of Homo erectus on Java raises questions about isolation. During glacial periods, when sea levels dropped, Java was connected to the mainland of Asia as part of the Sunda Shelf. Humans and animals could move freely across the land. During interglacials, seas rose, turning Java into an island. Populations became isolated, cut off from contact with others. This cycle repeated over millennia, alternately connecting and dividing. In their final phase, it seems the Erectus populations of Java became isolated for good. Planetary forces shaped their fate. Global ice ages locked water in glaciers, lowering seas by over 100 meters. Coastlines stretched outward. Rivers cut deeper valleys. Migration routes opened. When the ice melted, seas rose, drowning lowlands and cutting populations apart. For the last Homo erectus on Java, the rising seas may have been decisive. Isolation reduced genetic diversity, limited resources, and increased vulnerability to change. The global rhythm of ice and water determined their survival as much as their own actions. The Nandong fossils also show variation. Some skulls have larger brain cases than earlier Erectus, approaching the lower range of modern humans. Others remain smaller, more archaic. This diversity raises the question of whether they were truly the same as earlier Erectus or a distinct late population. Some scholars suggest they may represent a transitional form, a regional variant evolving toward something new, but no evidence links them directly to modern humans, and genetic data is absent. The mystery remains unresolved. Another unresolved debate concerns their disappearance. Did they die out gradually, their numbers dwindling as resources declined, or were they replaced suddenly by the arrival of modern humans? The dates overlap, making contact possible. Yet no tools or fossils of Homo sapiens have been found directly with those of late Erectus in Java. If encounters occurred, they left no visible trace. Perhaps isolation shielded them for a time until rising seas and ecological pressures finally ended their story. One planetary scale observation highlights the fragility of their survival. Around 74,000 years ago, the Toba supereruption in nearby Sumatra released ash across much of Asia. This event reshaped climates, cooled temperatures, and disrupted ecosystems. By that time, Homo erectus on Java may already have been gone, but if they lingered into that period, such a catastrophe could have been the final blow. The alignment of volcanic disaster and fragile populations illustrates how vulnerable even long-lived species can be to sudden change. The endurance of Homo erectus on Java is extraordinary when seen in scale. From their first arrival, perhaps 1.5 million years ago, to their last presence around 120,000 years ago, they lived on the island for over 1 million years. This duration surpasses the entire existence of Homo sapiens so far. While we measure our civilizations in thousands of years, their survival spanned geological ages. They adapted not through constant innovation, but through persistence, living within their means, repeating strategies that worked, enduring until the environment finally shifted beyond their capacity. One lesser-known fossil, the Mojokerto child, adds depth to the story. Though much older than Ngandong, this infant skull, discovered in volcanic deposits, shows how long the lineage had endured on Java. From infants in the early Pleistocene to adults in the late Pleistocene, the fossil record charts not only persistence but also generational continuity. Life and death repeated in cycles, each generation unaware of its place in the larger story, yet together forming one of the longest human legacies. Picture their world near the end. The Solo River winds across a broad plain, elephants and stegodons grazing its banks. Forest patches rise among grasslands, while volcanoes smoke in the distance. A group of Homo erectus moves along the river, carrying stone flakes, watching for game. Their tools are simple, their lives ordinary, cutting meat, breaking bones, tending fire. They do not know they are the last. To them, the world is as it has always been, full of challenges but also resources. Yet from the view of deep time, they stand on the edge of extinction. The disappearance of the last holdouts is both a mystery and a certainty. Fossils vanish after Ngandong, and no later evidence appears. The silence is total, whether through rising seas, dwindling numbers, competition, or disaster. Homo erectus on Java is gone. Their absence marks the end of nearly 2 million years of endurance, the close of one of humanity's longest chapters. Still, their legacy endures in bones and stones. The skulls of Ngandong, the child of Mojokerto, the discoveries of Trinil and Sangiran, all remain as witnesses. They tell of survival on islands, of persistence across ages, of the last echoes of a species that once spanned continents. Their story is not one of defeat, but of endurance, lasting until the planet itself shifted beyond their reach. In the grand sweep of history, the last holdouts in Indonesia remind us of the fragility of survival. Even the most enduring lineage can vanish, not with drama but with silence. What remains are fossils buried in river mud, stone tools scattered in volcanic soil, and questions that may never be answered. Yet in these fragments lies the memory of a species that endured longer than most, surviving until the very threshold of our own emergence. Throughout the long story of Homo erectus, certain themes repeat: fire glowing in the dark, stone tools scattered in soil, bones carrying marks of use. These elements define the species more than any other. They show ingenuity, persistence, and adaptation. Yet amid these traces lies a striking absence. Nowhere in their record do we find clear evidence of symbols, no carvings, no beads, no art. Their legacy is practical rather than symbolic, grounded in survival rather than in meaning. This silence separates them from later humans and shapes how we remember their place in the human journey. The control of fire is central. As early as 1 million years ago, at Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, ash layers and burned bones suggest deliberate use. At Zhoukoudian in northern China, darkened sediments and charred remains point to hearths. The debate over whether these were natural or controlled fires continues, but the repeated evidence across continents suggests a consistent pattern. Fire, whether borrowed from lightning or kindled deliberately, became part of daily life. It extended the day, offered warmth in cold climates, and protected against predators. More than that, it transformed food, softening roots, releasing energy from meat, and reducing disease from parasites. Fire altered biology itself, shrinking teeth and jaws over time, supporting larger brains with richer diets. Stone tools formed the other pillar of survival. The Acheulean hand axe, emerging in Africa around 1.7 million years ago, spread widely with Homo erectus. Its symmetrical shape, carefully worked on both sides, remained astonishingly stable for more than 1 million years. On Java and in much of East Asia, however, simpler flake tools dominated. This contrast, known as the Mobius line, reflects either cultural divergence or environmental constraint. Regardless of form, tools enabled butchery, woodcutting, and digging. They gave access to marrow, tubers, and fibers, turning raw landscapes into resources. One lesser-known discovery highlights the continuity of this tool tradition. At Ologosaile in Kenya, layers of Acheulean hand axes span hundreds of thousands of years. Some are refined, others crude, but the overall form persists. Archaeologists note that even after immense spans of time, separated by volcanic eruptions and climate shifts, the tools remain similar. This stability suggests not stagnation, but sufficiency. The hand axe was versatile enough that change was unnecessary. For Homo erectus, survival came not through rapid innovation, but through dependable repetition. Yet the symbolic world is silent. Unlike Neanderthal, who left perforated shells and pigments, or Homo sapiens, who painted caves and strung beads, Homo erectus left no trace of abstract expression. No art lines the walls of caves, no ornaments accompany their bones. This absence raises questions. Did they truly lack symbolic thought, or did they express it in ways invisible to the record? Wood carvings, body painting, or perishable ornaments could vanish without trace. The silence may reflect preservation rather than absence. Still, the contrast with later humans is striking. Mysteries deepen in this silence. Brain sizes of late Homo erectus approach those of early modern humans, yet the cultural record remains simple. Was cognition limited by shorter childhoods, leaving less time for learning? Did small, scattered populations reduce opportunities for innovation? Or did survival strategies emphasize practicality over symbolism, leaving no space for abstract expression? The answers remain unknown, hidden in the gap between bone and behavior. Planetary forces once again frame the story. During glacial cycles, habitats shifted dramatically. Grasslands replaced forests, rivers dried, coastlines retreated. These changes demanded constant adjustment. Symbolic culture may not have been necessary for survival. Practical tools and fire sufficed. allowing endurance across environments from equatorial forests to temperate plains. Symbolism, when it later arose in Neanderthals and sapiens, may have been less about survival itself and more about expanding social bonds. Homo erectus endured without it, proof that meaning is not required for persistence. One subtle clue lies in the use of space. At sites such as Bilzingsleben in Germany, often linked to later humans but with possible ties to erectus-like populations, stones seem arranged in patterns, perhaps for dwelling structures. Some interpret these as symbolic or ritual traces, others see only practical arrangements. The line between practicality and symbolism is thin, and without clear evidence, interpretation remains cautious. The silence extends to burials. Later, humans buried their dead deliberately, sometimes with offerings. Homo erectus left no such traces. Their bones lie where they fell, or where rivers and caves carried them. This absence may reflect not only symbolic limits but also practical realities. Small groups with limited resources may not have invested in rituals, focusing instead on survival. The result is a record where death leaves no cultural echo, only skeletal remains. Still, the achievements of Homo erectus remain immense. They were the first humans to expand beyond Africa, the first to use fire regularly, the first to create a standardized tool tradition that lasted longer than any technology in history. Their silence in symbolism does not diminish these accomplishments. Instead, it highlights the diversity of human pathways. Some species built meaning into objects, others built endurance into practice. Both strategies carried life forward. One lesser-known fossil offers perspective. The Buri pelvis from Ethiopia, attributed to an early human close to Erectus, shows adaptations for birthing larger-brained infants. This suggests that even before symbolism, biology was shifting toward greater complexity. Symbolism may have been delayed not by capacity but by circumstance. The seeds were present, but the flowering awaited later species. Scale again deepens the view. The Acheulean hand axe endured for over 1.5 million years, longer than Homo sapiens has yet existed. By comparison, our symbolic art spans only tens of thousands of years. The silence of Erectus may seem stark, but their achievements in longevity far surpass ours so far. Their legacy is not carved in caves, but written in time itself. Picture their world. A group sits by a fire in a cave mouth, the night cold outside. Stone flakes lie scattered, hand axes gleam in firelight. Meat roasts on embers, roots soften in flames. The air smells of smoke and ash. Children play with stones, imitating toolmakers. The scene is ordinary, repeated countless times across centuries. No art marks the walls, no beads shine on the ground. Yet the fire glows, tools cut, and life continues. In this simplicity lies survival. The symbolic silence of Homo erectus remains one of the greatest mysteries of human history. Their brains were large, their tools sophisticated, their survival immense, yet they left no trace of abstract thought we can see. Perhaps meaning existed only in gesture, in voice, in fleeting marks that time erased. Perhaps survival alone was enough. Whatever the truth, their legacy endures in stone and fire, echoes of a species that lived not through symbols, but through persistence. As the long story of Homo erectus entered its final chapters, a new species began to emerge. In Africa, around 300,000 years ago, fossils reveal the presence of Homo sapiens, our own lineage. These early humans carried traits familiar to us today: lighter skeletons, higher foreheads, and larger, more rounded brains. They were not yet modern in every respect, but they belonged to the species that would one day span the globe. Their arrival marked a profound shift in the human journey, a change that would reshape the fate of every other branch. The appearance of Homo sapiens coincided with climatic instability. Africa experienced cycles of wet and dry phases, sometimes transforming deserts into green savannas, sometimes reversing the change. These shifts opened corridors for migration and then closed them again, creating pulses of movement across the continent. Within this fluctuating landscape, Homo sapiens adapted not only with tools but also with symbolic culture. Beads made of shells, pigments ground from ochre, and engravings on bone appear in the record by 100,000 years ago. These traces suggest that symbolic thought, largely absent from Homo erectus, was already part of their world. One lesser-known site lies at Jebel Irhoud in Morocco. Here, fossils dated to about 315,000 years ago preserve faces that are recognizably human, though with elongated skulls compared to us today. Stone tools found alongside them are sophisticated, shaped through precise flaking techniques. The Jebel Irhoud discoveries extend the age of Homo sapiens farther back than once believed, showing that our species arose not suddenly but gradually, spread across Africa. As Homo sapiens developed, their technologies advanced rapidly compared to the long stability of Homo erectus. Blade tool, microliths, and specialized implements appear in different regions. These tools, sharper and more varied, suggest not only innovation but also teaching and planning. Cultural change became faster, passing knowledge through generations with increasing efficiency. Where Homo erectus repeated hand axes for 1 million years, sapiens shifted technologies within tens of thousands. The spread of Homo sapiens out of Africa began around 70,000 years ago. Though earlier movements may have occurred, genetic studies show that all non-African humans today descend from these later migrations. By this time, Homo erectus still lingered in Java, but their days were numbered. The expansion of sapiens across Asia brought not only competition, but also new ways of life. Symbolism, complex language, and social networks gave Homo sapiens advantages that earlier humans could not match. Planetary forces shaped this expansion. During glacial phases, sea levels dropped, exposing land bridges across the Red Sea, the Arabian Peninsula, and into Southeast Asia. These windows allowed humans to move outward. When seas rose again, populations became isolated, but by then sapiens had spread widely. Their adaptability to diverse environments, from deserts to coasts, from highlands to forests, set them apart. They did not only endure climates, they thrived within them, reshaping landscapes with fire, hunting, and gathering. Mysteries remain about their encounters with Homo erectus. Did modern humans reach Java in time to meet the last holdouts? Fossils suggest overlap, but no direct evidence of contact exists. If they met, the differences would have been profound. One group carried simple flake tools, the other fine blades and ornaments. One left no art, the other carved symbols. The meeting would have been unequal, perhaps brief, and may have hastened the end of the older species. Genetic evidence adds clarity with other humans. Neanderthals and Denisovans interbred with sapiens, leaving traces in our DNA, but no clear genetic contribution from Homo erectus appears. Whether this reflects true absence or simply a lack of preserved DNA remains uncertain. Without genetic evidence, the voice of Erectus is silent in our blood, even if encounters occurred. One lesser-known clue comes from Lake Mungo in Australia, where modern humans lived by 50,000 years ago. To reach Sahul, the ancient continent joining Australia and New Guinea, they crossed seas never bridged by Homo erectus. This achievement shows a leap in planning and cooperation, skills absent in the earlier species. Where Erectus drifted or opportunistically crossed waters, sapiens deliberately voyaged. The difference highlights the gulf between endurance and innovation. The symbolic world of Homo sapiens also reshaped survival. Shell beads in North Africa, ochre in South Africa, and carvings in the Levant all point to communication beyond the practical. Symbols created identity, linking groups across space and time. This network of shared meaning gave Homo sapiens resilience, allowing cooperation across distances that Homo erectus could not match. Culture itself became a survival tool, as vital as fire or stone. Planetary-scale observations reinforce this turning point. As glaciers locked water, coastlines stretched outward, opening new routes. As climates warmed, humans followed rivers into fertile corridors. Within a few tens of thousands of years, sapiens reached Australia, Europe, and later the Americas. No human species had moved so far, so fast. Against the backdrop of deep time, their expansion was swift, contrasting with the slower drift of Homo erectus. Yet the story of sapiens is not only one of success. With their spread came the disappearance of others. Neanderthals vanished around 40,000 years ago. Denisovans faded into genetic memory. And Homo erectus, already confined to Java, disappeared entirely. Whether through competition, climate, or chance, their survival ended as ours began to dominate. The long era of multiple human species gave way to a world with one. The absence of symbolic traces in Homo erectus becomes more poignant in this context. Where erectus endured, sapiens expressed. Where erectus repeated, sapiens transformed. The silence of one contrasts with the voices of the other. The difference may not be intelligence alone, but the ability to weave meaning into survival, to bind communities with symbols as much as with tools. Picture the moment of transition. On the plains of Africa, modern humans shape blades from stone, paint patterns on rock, string beads of shells. Across the seas, in Java, a small group of Homo erectus tends a fire by the Solo River, shaping flakes as their ancestors had done for ages. Neither knows the other exists, yet history is turning. The practices of one will fade, the symbols of the other will spread across the planet. The coming of Homo sapiens does not erase the achievements of Homo erectus. Without their endurance, their migrations, their mastery of fire and tools, the path to sapiens would not exist, but the arrival of our species marks the closing of their chapter. The silence of erectus meets the voices of sapiens, and the world shifts forever. For nearly 2 million years, Homo erectus endured. They walked out of Africa, spread across Asia, survived shifting climates, crossed rivers, tended fire, and shaped stone. Their story is longer than that of any other human species, yet in the end, they disappeared. Fossils fall silent after about 120,000 years ago, with no later traces. The reasons for their vanishing remain one of the great puzzles of human history. The first explanation lies in climate. The Pleistocene epoch was a time of repeated ice ages, each bringing changes in rainfall, vegetation, and sea levels, Africa swung between wet and dry phases, turning deserts into grasslands and back again. In Asia, cold winters pushed forests south, while monsoons shifted their courses. Homo erectus endured these cycles for a long time, but the final phases may have been too severe. When seas rose, Java became isolated. When rivers shifted, resources changed. Small, scattered populations may have lacked the numbers to adapt once more. Climate did not destroy them in a single blow, but slowly eroded their stability. Competition offers another explanation. By 300,000 years ago, new human species had emerged. In Africa, Homo sapiens evolved with larger brains and symbolic culture. In Europe and Western Asia, Neanderthals thrived, adapted to cold glacial climates. In Siberia, Denisovans held territory. Each of these species carried innovations absent in Homo erectus: complex language, ornaments, planned hunting strategies, and broader social networks. When Homo sapiens expanded out of Africa around 70,000 years ago, they carried these traits into Asia. The contrast between the symbolic silence of Erectus and the expressive culture of sapiens may have tilted the balance. Encounters, if they occurred, were unlikely to favor the older species. One lesser-known detail adds nuance. Fossils at Nandong on Java, the last known Erectus site, date to between 120,000 and 108,000 years ago. At this time, Homo sapiens were already spreading across the Middle East. The overlap makes encounters possible, though unproven. If contact occurred, sapiens may have competed more effectively for resources, displacing Erectus. Even without direct conflict, the advantage of broader networks, better tools, and symbolic communication could have made the difference. Disease may have played a role as well. When populations meet after long separation, pathogens often move with them. Homo erectus, isolated on Java or in parts of Asia, may have lacked immunity to diseases carried by newcomers. No fossils show direct evidence of epidemics, but the possibility cannot be dismissed. The fragility of small populations magnifies the impact of even modest diseases. Another unresolved mystery lies in innovation. The Aculan hand axe, used by Erectus for over 1 million years, shows stability but also limits. While effective, it did not change much, and in some regions it never appeared at all. In contrast, Homo sapiens shifted tool types within tens of thousands of years. Their technologies grew more specialized and adaptable. The slow pace of change in Erectus may have constrained their ability to respond to rapidly shifting climates and new challenges. Cultural conservatism, once a strength, became a vulnerability. Planetary-scale forces also intervened. Volcanic eruptions shaped the landscapes where Erectus lived. Around 74,000 years ago, the Toba supereruption in Sumatra sent ash across much of Asia, altering climate for years. If Erectus still lingered on Java during this period, such a catastrophe may have dealt a final blow. Ecosystems collapsed temporarily, reducing food and stressing populations already fragile. Survival through such an event required flexibility, social networks, and innovations that may have been beyond their reach. Yet extinction rarely has a single cause. More often it is convergence, climate shifts, competition, disease, and chance events aligning together. For Homo erectus, the convergence came late, after an unprecedented span of survival. The irony is clear. They endured for longer than almost any species of human, yet in the end, they too reached a limit. Longevity did not guarantee permanence. The fossil record reflects this silence. After Ngandong, no bones, no tools, no hearths remain. The absence is total, not only in Java, but across Asia and Africa. Other species continue, but Homo erectus is gone. The abruptness of the record underscores how quickly populations can vanish once critical thresholds are passed. One subtle observation is scale. From their first appearance in Africa to their last presence in Indonesia spans nearly 2 million years. Within this time, glaciers advanced and retreated dozens of times. Seas rose and fell more than 100 meters. Continents shifted subtly, rivers carved valleys, volcanoes erupted. Through all this, Homo erectus survived. Yet in the end, the species vanished so thoroughly that only bones in soil remain. Their disappearance is not failure, but a reminder of fragility. Even endurance meets limits when planetary and evolutionary forces converge. Mystery surrounds their legacy. Did they leave descendants in later species, or did their line end completely? Some suggest Asian erectus populations may have contributed to Denisovans, whose DNA shows signals of deep ancestry. Others argue Erectus was a side branch, with no surviving genetic impact. Without preserved DNA from Erectus fossils, the question remains open. Their contribution, if any, is hidden, a genetic silence echoing their symbolic one. Picture their last days on Java. Small groups gather by rivers, tending fires, shaping flakes. The forest hums with insects. Elephants graze nearby. Volcanoes smoke on the horizon. To them, life is ordinary. They cannot know they are the last of their kind. Slowly, their numbers dwindle. Births fail to replace deaths. Floods, disease, or storms take their toll. One day, the last ember dies in a hearth. The last footprint washes away. No one notices. Extinction leaves no witness. The disappearance of Homo erectus reminds us of the contingency of survival. Species endure as long as conditions allow, then vanish when forces surpass their capacity. Their fate is not unique. Most species in Earth's history have gone extinct. What makes Homo erectus remarkable is not their ending, but their span. They survived longer than Homo sapiens has yet managed. They adapted to forests, plains, rivers, and islands, enduring across ages when other species came and went. Their vanishing is a reminder that even the most successful lineage meets an end. In the silence left behind, fossils speak faintly. A skull cap from Trinil, a child's skull from Mojokerto, a dozen heads from Ngandong, all tell fragments of a story. Together they sketch the outline of a species that endured immense time, yet disappeared without monument. Their vanishing was quiet, unmarked, yet decisive. It cleared the way for others, Neanderthals, Denisovans, and finally Homo sapiens, to inherit the Earth. Why did they vanish? Climate, competition, disease, disaster, or some mix of all these. No single answer suffices. The truth may be unknowable, hidden in the deep past, but the question itself is a lesson. Survival is never permanent. Even the longest-lived human species could not escape change forever. When the last groups of Homo erectus disappeared, the world grew quieter. No one marked their passing. No memory recorded their final days. Yet their absence opened space for others. Neanderthals filled Europe, Denisovans held parts of Asia, and Homo sapiens spread from Africa into every corner of the globe. The line of Erectus ended, but their shadows stretched forward, shaping the landscapes into which later humans stepped. In the stillness that followed, only bones and tools remained to whisper their story. The silence of their disappearance contrasts with the vastness of their survival. For nearly 2 million years, Homo erectus lived across 3 continents. They crossed rivers and plains, endured ice ages and monsoons, and adapted to both equatorial forests and northern winters. Few species in Earth's history endured for so long. In this measure of time, their extinction is less tragedy than inevitability. Every lineage meets an end. What makes Erectus unique is how long they endured before it came. One lesser-known detail illustrates this endurance. At Sangiran in Java, fossil layers span hundreds of thousands of years, each revealing generations of Homo erectus living in the same region. Volcanic eruptions buried some communities. Rivers shifted courses, forests spread and retreated. Yet through it all, they persisted. Such continuity over immense spans is extraordinary. It shows not only survival but stability. A rhythm of life repeated again and again until planetary forces shifted beyond return. The mystery lies in how complete their vanishing became. Unlike Neanderthals, who left traces in our DNA, Homo erectus left none, at least none that can be clearly identified. Their genetic voice is silent. Whether they contributed indirectly, through lineages that evolved into other species, or whether their line ended completely, remains uncertain. Without DNA from their fossils, the answer may remain forever hidden. Their silence is both symbolic and biological, an absence echoing through time. Planetary scale changes frame this ending. As the Pleistocene advanced, ice sheets waxed and waned, seas rose and fell, climates shifted. Each change required adaptation. For hundreds of thousands of years, Erectus met these challenges. But in the final phases, the shifts may have been too abrupt. Rising seas isolated Java, fragmenting populations. Volcanic eruptions reshaped landscapes. New species expanded outward with symbolic culture, complex language, and broader cooperation. Against this convergence of pressures, the old strategies of Erectus, stable tools, endurance walking, and practical fire use were no longer enough. Their stillness today is most visible in museums and excavation sites. A skull cap rests in a case in Jakarta. Casts of Peking man skulls line shelves in Beijing. The Turkana boy skeleton lies in Nairobi. Each fossil is silent, yet filled with meaning. They do not speak words, but they show the heavy brows, the thick bones, the long limbs that once walked across open plains. They are still, but their stillness is not emptiness. It is a reminder of presence carried forward through deep time. The absence of symbolic culture intensifies this quiet. Homo erectus left no painting, no carvings, no graves with offerings. Their memory is not written in art, but in geology. Layers of ash and silt preserve their tools. Bones carry cut marks. Caves hold traces of fire. These are practical, not symbolic, yet they tell enough. A species that endured not by dreaming, but by repeating. Their silence is not failure, but difference. They lived another way, one that lasted longer than ours has yet endured. One unresolved scientific mystery concerns the exact relationship between Erectus and later species. Some see them as direct ancestors of Homo sapiens, a branch leading eventually to us. Others view them as cousins, parallel but separate. Fossils in Africa and Eurasia blur the line, showing traits of both Erectus and later humans. Without complete sequences, the relationship remains debated. The stillness of their fossils holds questions as well as answers. Scale gives their story perspective. The entire history of agriculture, cities, and writing is less than 12,000 years old. Homo erectus survived more than 150 times that span. If our species endures as long as they did, we will still exist 2 million years from now. Yet their fate reminds us that longevity is no guarantee. Survival depends on forces beyond control: climate, geology, chance. In their stillness lies a warning that endurance itself can end. Picture the last ember of their fire dying on Java's plains. The smoke fades, the night grows cold. No one reignites it. The wind carries away the ash. The river washes away the tools. In the morning, the forest grows back, erasing traces of their presence. Yet beneath the soil, skulls and bones remain, waiting for discovery. Their stillness is not total. It is a silence broken only when we uncover them. Millions of years later, their story lingers in landscapes as well. Rivers carved valleys where they gathered water. Grasslands spread where they hunted game. Volcanoes erupted where they lived, burying both life and memory. These landscapes remain, shaped by planetary forces but touched by human presence. Though Homo erectus vanished, the earth still bears traces of their time. Their stillness is woven into the land itself. One lesser-known site, Sambungmakan in Java, preserves late fossils that resemble both Homo erectus and later humans. These blurred forms suggest transitions, possibilities of connection, or simply variation within a final population. They remind us that extinction is rarely sudden. More often, it is a fading, a blending, until lines blur and vanish. The fossils from Sambungmakan embody that twilight, the stillness before disappearance. In reflecting on their vanishing, it is easy to focus on what they lacked: no art, no symbols, no complex language we can see. Yet what they achieved was immense. They were the first to leave Africa, the first to master fire, the first to create standardized tools. Their endurance across climates and continents laid the foundation for every later species. Without their persistence, the path to us might never have opened. Their stillness is not emptiness, but foundation. The lost ancestors remain with us, not in memory, but in presence. Their fossils lie in museums, their tools in soil, their story in books. Their silence invites reflection. In a world of change, they endured longer than we have yet managed. Their disappearance shows that endurance ends, but their presence shows what survival once meant. They remind us that humanity is not a single story, but many branches, many experiments, many ends. In the end, the stillness of Homo erectus is not absence but echo. They vanish, yet their legacy endures. The world they left behind became ours. The silence of their fossils speaks across time, reminding us of fragility and endurance together. In that stillness, their story rests, a chapter closed but never forgotten. Now the story closes. The long arc of Homo erectus has reached its end. For nearly 2 million years, they lived upon this planet. They endured climates that shifted with the slow breathing of ice and sea. They crossed plains, rivers, and coasts, step by step, leaving faint traces behind. Their tools, their fires, their bones are all that remain, scattered across continents. Their stillness today is quiet but immense. A skull cap resting in volcanic soil carries the weight of centuries. A hand axe buried in silt outlasts entire civilizations. Each fossil is a reminder that survival itself can be a monument even without symbols or art. Homo erectus did not carve caves or string beads, but they endured, and in endurance lies its own legacy. Mysteries remain. Were they our direct ancestors, or cousins whose line ended in silence? Did they ever meet our kind, or did the waves of time pass without notice? Did they know moments of wonder, gazing into firelight, sensing something more than survival? The answers may never be found. What endures is the reminder that humanity is many stories, not one. On the planetary scale, their story is a blink, yet compared with us, their span is vast. If we are to match them, our species must survive far into the future. Their silence warns us survival is fragile, never guaranteed. Their endurance inspires us. Life adapts, even in the face of immense change. So the record rests. The winds move across grasslands, rivers cut valleys, glaciers rise and fall. The bones of Homo erectus remain where they lay, silent witnesses to ages past. Their echoes linger, not in words, but in time, shaping the ground on which we walk.